Jesus fulfilled the law.
Boom.
What's the common interpretation, or that's often people understand this as what?
That the law is over. It's done away with, and that Jesus, that grace has replaced law.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Grace replaces law. Jesus abolished the law.
Yeah.
So this is a big problem. That interpretation is a really big problem. Yeah. So let's look at the text. We're in Matthew 5:17, still in the Sermon on the Mount. So fun just to be in the Sermon on the Mount.
Love it.
Jesus says this, "Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill."
Said it right there.
Okay, so it says Jesus came to fulfill the law, right?
Yep.
But the main question then is, what does fulfill mean, like you were saying?
What does it mean?
Sam, before we jump into that, what is the text saying that fulfill does not mean?
It does not mean that it has abolished the law or the prophets.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, he says it twice in the verse, right?
Do not think. I have not come to abolish. Yeah.
I did not come to abolish.
Right.
Do not think I came to abolish. Okay, so
that's emphasis. That's emphasis.
We've got it twice in the same verse. Now,
Indeed.
help us. All right, we'll keep going. I call this the keep reading principle.
Keep reading.
So this is a key to biblical interpretation. You
Keep
can
reading.
learn this in seminary. It's called keep reading, okay? So Matthew 5:18, the very next verse, Jesus says, "Amen, I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or dot shall ever pass away from the law until all things come to pass." So here we've got some extreme language,
Definitely.
right? And we still have the same earth and the same sky last time I checked. I'm not a scientist.
I'm no scientographer.
The smallest Hebrew letter, of course, is a yud. Okay, so he's got these two extremes here.
Right.
So he's going from like all of heaven and earth down to this tiny little.
stroke. Yeah.
The yud's like a really, really tiny upside down L.
Okay.
I was trying to think how I could describe it. So the point is, if you didn't understand what he was saying, it was that the law is not abolished. Okay.
So he said it
So-
1, 2, 3, basically 3 to 4 times.
All right, let's keep going. Keep reading.
Keep reading.
Verse 19, Jesus says, "Therefore, whoever annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever keeps and teaches them, this one shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven." Clearly he's not abolishing
No.
or annulling the law, so much so he's saying what? You would actually be called
Least.
least in the kingdom, okay?
Which that doesn't sound like a good thing.
I don't think that's you. I don't think you would be called that.
Less favorable
Yeah.
than not being called that.
So, if fulfill doesn't mean abolish, I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
What does it mean, Sam? Okay, so we'll keep reading. All right?
Can you fulfill my cup, please?
Oh, I will fill it full. Oh, wow. Now we're defining the word, aren't we?
That's called a sermon
Fulfill.
illustration.
Hey. Wow.
Or an object lesson.
All right, so Matthew 5:21.
They think we planned that, but we didn't.
We did not. We're going to skip verse 20, jump to 21. Jesus says, "You have heard it was said to those of old." Here we go. You have heard that it was said.
Again, familiarity, people understanding that they've heard this before, right?
Right? "You shall not murder, and whoever commits murder shall be subject to judgment.
Yep.
But I tell you that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be subject to judgment." So, what is Jesus doing here? He's bringing greater depth and greater understanding,
Yeah.
interpretation, you could even say,
Right.
to the law against murder, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
is he saying, now you can murder, but you just can't be angry in your heart?
That's a very interesting interpretation.
Right?
Kill somebody, but just don't be angry about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's building on
Right.
the law, isn't he?
He's drilling it down. He's making
Right.
he's getting to the heart of the matter.
Exactly. That's so good. He's getting to the heart of the commandment, isn't he? Right?
Absolutely.
So sometimes you can miss the forest for the trees. Well, I don't murder people. I've never killed anyone. Right?
So then you're a perfect person then. Yeah.
I just slander and I'm angry in my heart all the time.
Yikes.
But I've never killed it.
Okay, hold on.
You
Yeah.
know?
Let's just pause that for just a second. So you just said, I've never killed anyone. I've never stolen anything. Like big sins, right? But then you brought it down to like practicals. But slander, backbiting, talking about somebody negatively behind their back, like just let that sink in a little bit. Like we need to let those things sink in a little bit.
Right.
Like that's real life right there.
It is.
Okay, sorry, keep going. I just had to pause there for a second.
No, I mean that's what. I mean, you read the Sermon on the Mount and the Gospels. That's what Jesus is trying to do, isn't
Totally.
he? He's trying to like make sure that they understand the heart of the commandments. That's what a good God King would do, right?
Good. So good.
So he's bringing a fullness to the law, a greater understanding, right? He's making it full, and it's deeper. It's this right interpretation, and this happens so many times. I'm not going to go through all the examples. He does it with adultery.
Yep.
He's trying to get to the heart of all these different commandments.
Right.
So he says, this is in Matthew 7:12.
At the end of the sermon, right?
It's exactly towards the end. Still in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, so in all things, do to others what you would want them to do to you.
Right.
So we've heard that before, do unto others as you would do to them.
Yeah.
But then he says, for this is the law and the prophets.
Oh, that's so good.
So I don't think people realize that. It's like the law and the prophets is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That the essence of this law is to love your neighbor.
Right.
What is Jesus really doing? He's trying to show them the most important reality is what? Love God.
Love neighbor.
Love neighbor.
And it's right here. Right.
Like, that's the essence. In fact, he says in Matthew 22, he says, all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments.
Wow.
That you love God and you love neighbor.
Right. Because you won't be fulfilling any obligation, command to the Lord without those things.
Exactly.
Because that's the heart of the matter.
So I think it's always good to ask questions like when you're even my kids, I'm asking them to vacuum the house. And I'm like, why? It's like all of these things hang on loving God and loving neighbors. Like, well, we're doing this because we're having people over to our house for small group.
Right.
You're loving neighbor.
Right.
It's not just a chore. It's like everything we do.
And mom. Yeah.
And mom, which is neighbor, right?
For sure.
So why are we doing small group? Because we love God.
Totally.
Like, so everything we do, if we get really to the heart, and it actually makes all those tasks easier to do.
Definitely.
When you see the heart behind it.
So it's the motive.
It is. It's a motive.
It's the motive behind the action. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So then later in the good book, later in Scripture, Paul, he agrees with Jesus, which is a good idea.
Good work, Paul.
Okay, that's a side note. Paul always agrees with Jesus.
Indeed.
So that's a
important note, though.
It is an important note.
That's disputed.
There's a continuity of Scripture, a bad understanding.
Right.
But Paul says this in Galatians 5:14. He says, "For the whole law can be summed up in a single saying: love your neighbor as yourself."
Yeah.
Remember, the question we're back to is Jesus fulfilled the law, right?
Yep.
Paul's saying that the whole law can be summarized as love your neighbor as yourself. And then he says this in Romans 13:10. Love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law.
Oh, cool. Huh.
So if Jesus fulfilled the law in Matthew 5:17,
Yeah.
it's talking also about what?
Love.
Love.
Yeah.
That his love brings this fullness, this full understanding, this full heart, this full depth of the law and the prophets.
So good.
Right? So Jesus isn't abolishing the law.
Right.
His love, it didn't even make sense in the context of the passage, right?
Right.
But the law has to be understood through the heart and the perspective of the lawgiver.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And then what the true heart of behind the laws has to be love.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So Jesus, his love fulfills the law.
Yeah.
And it brings fullness to the meaning of love God and love neighbor.
Right. And that's why, like, even going back to the John 15 passage, like, he repeats himself multiple times. Love and commands. Love and commands. If you love me, you'll obey me. These, like, love and commandment is just linked.
Exactly.
It's love and obedience is just, it's together. And it's the root of the obedience.
Exactly.
It's the essence of it. It's the motive behind it. It's all about it.
Right.
And it's what it's for and unto.
Right. If you love me,
you'll obey my commands.
You'll obey my commandments. So
Yeah.
Jesus fulfills the law, has everything to do with his love, but that doesn't mean now that the law is abolished and done away with, as he was really screaming in the text, not to come to that conclusion.
Literally, like by repeating himself multiple times.
Right.
And then, and I'm going back to John again too, and he's saying, like, greater love has no one than a man lay down his life for his friend.
Exactly.
So that's again this love you're doing to others, love your neighbor
Right.
as yourself. You're laying your life down for your friend, your brother, your sister.
Yes.
And even going back to the Matthew 5, even if you're angry with your brother or sister, like even just that motive, that act, that issue, it causes relational discord and it breaks down the relationship and it can lead to relational murder.
Yeah.
Right? You can murder the relationship, and that's what Jesus is trying to say. That's not we don't want that. We're trying to avoid that.
Right. Which is why he's going even to the extreme of saying loving your enemies.
Right.
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 Like, because that whole posture, that hate, that anger, that it's going to not go well for you.
No, exactly.
And he's concerned about what? This destiny of being thrown into hell that he keeps repeating,
which
over
again,
and over and over again.
It's separation from him, right? Thrown into hell is separation from him. That's separation from that love and that relationship. It's so good. So good.
So Jesus' love fulfilled the law. Amen. Hey, Sam. You know, it'd be awesome.
What?
Is if Grafted had more monthly supporters.
That would be really awesome.
Then we could make more videos.
Yep.
And it would really help us.
It would.
Any amount, actually.
Any amount helps.
We love you guys. Please help us out, and we would love to put out more content showing you the Jewish context of the Bible, making it easier to understand. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you want to see another video where we talk about hard sayings of Jesus, click over here and subscribe down below if you loved what you saw.